Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna go ahead and do a review on this bad boy. This is the Freak Athlete Nordic Hyper GHD. So let's get into it. Now, first things first, when this thing arrives, it's gonna come in a big old box. The packaging is so-so. I mean, they did a good job of placing everything in a nice way where nothing was smacking into each other. They got plastic, they got cardboard, styrofoam. But I feel like during transit it might get rocked around a little bit and you might have some nicks and scratches on some of these pieces. Once you pull everything out of the box, you're going to see that the middle piece is basically pre-assembled, which means this is going to be very easy to put together. The instructions are very decent and it's about 30 to 45 minutes to put this thing together. Again, with that middle piece fully assembled, you're just going to have to put the feet on, the foot plate, the roller pads. You got 2 sets. And then of course the pads and the weight posts that allow you to anchor this thing down due to the fact that it is a little unstable. Now, once you get this thing completely assembled, there is going to be a little bit of a learning curve. There are a lot of knobs when it comes to this piece of equipment. There's about 7 different knobs. They're pop and pull. So you take the knob, you unloosen it, pull it, do your adjustment, and then you're going to want to tighten these knobs. The tightening helps when it comes to the wobble of this piece. If you don't have this thing completely tightened, it's going to be a lot more unstable compared to having every one of those knobs tightened. They do have on the knob that's nice and bright red to tighten it. The biggest learning curve when it comes down to this piece is there's locking knobs on here. So you got one in the front and you got one in the back. The one in the front will help when it comes to locking this thing in place when it's in storage mode for the adjustable bench. Then you've got one in the back that helps lock down the foot plate. Now, the easiest way for me to do this review is to do kind of a brief overview. So we're going to talk about this machine going from the front to the back. And then we're going to go through the exercises that this machine basically says and claims that it can all do. When we look at the front of this machine, you're going to see that there's band rings. There's 4 sets of those. There's weight posts, so you can add more weight to this thing. You got your handlebars, you have your pads. The pads are nice and grippy material. It feels nice and firm. You have your middle pad right here. This thing basically you unloosen and then it pops out from the middle. There's a rubber block on one side and then there's a rubber block on the actual frame itself. You want to make sure you line those up when you're putting this pad in. You also do have a GHD pad, which is nice. That right there says reverse hyper. That's number 6. I feel like they shouldn't even mention that, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So once you have the middle pad in there, you're going to tighten it. Now watch the Freak Athlete, because this is part, see that? How it nicely wobbles? Now watch how I tighten it. See how it moved? Unloosen, and then tighten. When you tighten this thing, it's kind of got like a weird little taper bracket. And honestly, I feel like it causes it to come up a little bit. So it's going to lean toward one side. It's not super noticeable when you're doing your exercise, but it is very annoying. So that's your middle pad. I want to point out when it comes to these pads, there's Velcro on the sides for the front, and then there's Velcro on the bottom for this middle pad. And that's going to allow you to attach this GHD pad using the Velcro. Now you do have your dual rollers. The roller pops out, just like that. The rollers feel actually pretty premium in my opinion. They're a lot better than my 45-degree back extension from Exmark. You do have lots of adjustments to make sure that you're anchored and nice and secure. And then of course you have your foot plate. When it comes to the gauge of steel, you got 8 gauge steel for the foot plate. Then you have 14 gauge for the rest of this piece. On the back of it, you do have another spot for being able to add more weight. And then of course you've got some wheels. You got this little guy right here so you can step up on it. And then on the bottom, there's a kickstand for being able to drop down and do 15, 10, and 5 degrees on your Nordics. All right, guys, the first exercise that I think is probably gonna be the best is gonna be a Nordic adjustable bench. And I feel like this is number 1 because honestly, this thing was made for being able to do Nordics. You have so many different adjustments that you can do. You can start at 45 degrees, which is what I have it at right now, which is the easiest. And then you can go all the way down to 20 degrees, just using this pop pin right here. And then they have a kickstand that allows you to do the 15, the 10, and the 5 degrees in order to hit your first Nordic. Once you're able to do the flat, if you are crazy enough, you can do some declines. You can actually angle this up so you can do decline Nordics. I don't know what they were thinking, but hey, what the hell? I mean, the more the merrier, I guess, right? Next exercise is gonna be the 45-degree hyper. We're gonna take this middle pad out. We don't need that. Put that off to the side. Now to adjust for height, you have this knob right here in the middle. You loosen, pull, and then you can adjust your height using that guy right there. This thing does have a hard time kind of pulling where it's nice and smooth. The easiest way I found out is if you grab it from the middle and then you kind of lift up and you pull it, then you can very easily slide this back and forth. If you grab it from the side, you can kind of do it, but it does get stuck at certain areas. So all you do is you find your spot, and then again you want to tighten this knob so it's nice and tight, and then you can go and do your 45-degree back extension. The next exercise that we're talking about is going to be GHD. Again, there's a locking knob on the foot plate. Come down, you grab it, pull up, goes to 20 degrees, unloosen this knob right here, pull, bring it up to 45 degrees, tighten it, and now you're in GHD mode. You got this little guy right here so you can step on it, and then you can get in place so you can do your 90-degree back extensions. Technically that's one of the exercises on here, but that's what you do when it comes to GHD mode. So we're hitting that one right away. You have your adjustable rollers. Make sure you adjust those so your feet don't slide out. And of course, make sure everything is tight. So this is going to be as stable as you can get it. It's not going to be 100% stable like a 45-degree back extension that is only made for doing that, because this doesn't have any solid welds basically compared to like my 45-degree from Exmark. Little side-to-side wobble, but when you actually do the exercise, everything feels nice and stable. Now I will talk about the 90-degree back extension. I'm only 6 feet and I came pretty close to being able to hit the middle column right there. I'll show you guys in the B-roll, but you can see how close my head is to hitting that thing. So I feel like if you're shorter, you might end up possibly hitting your head on the column. So I would say be careful when it comes to that. So we just hit the 90-degree back extension. The other exercise that they say that this can do is going to be hip thrusts. Well, hip thrust I feel is not a bad exercise, but my issue with the hip thrust is the design that they created. So the post is on the front, you pull the pin out, you pop the post up, you put the pin back in, and then there's a screw that tightens on the front, you tighten that all the way down, and that creates the nice stability of the post, and then you just take this guy out. Then you pop this in the front over there, and then you can do your hip thrusts. I will say it feels nice and secure when you're doing your hip thrusts. This pad is very firm, so it doesn't actually feel squishy when it comes to it. And overall, I just question how long this thing is gonna last, just based on the design itself. So the other exercise they claim this thing can do is sit-ups. So yes, you can do sit-ups on this, but again, it's the height factor. If you're too tall, you might end up hitting your head. You can also do leg raises on this, but again, your feet might touch the ground if you're taller, so you might end up having to elevate this thing up in order to do that exercise as well. All right, guys, we're at the very end. We are on the last exercise, and that is the reverse hyper. Now, personally, in my opinion, I do not feel that this is a reverse hyper. Basically, what they're saying is you can basically lean up against this, grab onto the handlebars on the foot plate, and then you can attach a resistance band to the anchor point on the front, and then you can do banded reverse hypers. Now, if you look at a normal reverse hyper, you're gonna see that it's a weighted pendulum that swings back and forth, and it allows you to decompress your spine. This is not going to accomplish the same thing. So if you've never done a reverse hyper before, yes, you can lean against this thing, you can throw your legs up in the air, and it will feel like you're doing something, but it is not meant to replace a reverse hyper. So if you're buying this for the reverse hyper function, I highly recommend you guys look into something like maybe the West Side barbell one from Rogue, because it's a little bit more space friendly compared to a standalone reverse hyper. Or if you like all of these different functions, you might want to consider something like a combo unit if you have the space. If you guys stuck around this long, I did have a little bit of fun when it comes to the versatility of this machine. There's resistant band rings in the front, so I was able to go to Amazon, I bought a pulley, I bought a cable, and I was able to attach this thing to my functional trainer. So I was able to do things like basically a 45-degree, I did rows, then I did 45-degree extensions using my functional trainer as the resistance. So if you're a do-it-yourselfer, I mean, this is something that you could end up doing with this machine. Now, not everything was rainbows and butterflies when it comes down to this. There was some minor quality issues at first. There was a couple of burrs here and there that I noticed. Not a big deal, but the biggest issue was one of my brackets was actually welded on crooked. This caused the machine to lean this way, so when I was having my feet in, they weren't completely secure, and it felt like one side was more secure than the other. And when I looked at the front of this machine, I could see that the bracket was welded in crooked. I contacted the customer service through Freak Athlete's IG page, and they did a great job of taking care of me. They went ahead and they talked to their, I believe their parts manager, and he knew right away that I needed a new middle piece, and they went and sent it out right away. I didn't have to return the old one because they didn't want to inconvenience me anymore, and I feel like the customer service was 100%. They did just a great job. Now we're finally at the price. Right now on sale at the time of this recording, it is $699.99 plus about, I paid $100 for shipping. So there are some codes out there. Joe Gray has one, Gluck has one, NoFit247 has one, and it'll give you an additional $50 off. So you're looking at $649.99 plus shipping and taxes to get this thing to your door. Now the fact that it's super space friendly, I'll show you guys, it takes up just about as much space as my Rogue bench when it's standing vertically. This is a very good value in my opinion. All right, guys, I hope you all enjoyed this review. If you guys did, make sure you guys hit the like button. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and drop me a comment. And if you guys haven't already, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. Otherwise, I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. Take care.